have tried the beta release because I think it came out a few weeks ago and the 9 slice feature was really new. So yeah, let's begin with the main stream content. So basically what 9 slice is, let me explain what it does. Can you guys see this? Can you see the GameMaker window? I hope you can. 9 slice of pizza. Okay. That might have been too much. I only limit myself to 2 slices. But yeah, if you can see the screen, this is what basically 9 slice is. It takes a rectangular image and it divides it into 9 parts or 9 slices. And this can be used for scaling because when you scale any image, basically every pixel gets enlarged and you can easily tell that it's scaled up. Doesn't look good. But for user interfaces and health bars, you basically need images that scale well enough and they preserve their details. And so that's what 9 slice does. It basically places these guides here, and you have the corners here, the edges, and the center. And what happens is that when you scale the image, when you scale it up, the corners stay intact, and the edges and the center part, they are scaled up. So no matter how large that rectangle, what's the difference? Oh yeah, I'm explaining that right now. So basically this is built into the Sprite Editor, so you don't have to use a script. And no matter how large you make that rectangle, the corners are never going to be scaled. They are always going to stay there, no matter how big you make it, and the edges will be stressed to fix the new size. Let's see it live now in GameMaker. I'll delete this and let me import in an image. So you can see this, a basic rectangular image, a button, and for 9 slice you have a new menu here. When you open it, of course we have another window that pops up here. First of all, let's look at this area. So you can see the guides here, the 4 guides that you can move around. And these basically control how the image is divided. So if you do this, you can see the 9 slice concept is divided into 9 parts. And the panel on the right shows you the scaling preview, basically allows you to scale it and to see how it's gonna function in the game. So if you scale it up, you're gonna see this is how it normally works. Every pixel is scaled up and it doesn't look good. If you do this in your game, it's not gonna look good. So this is where 9 slice comes in. I can place these guides here to tell GameMaker where my corners are. So these will be my corners and my edges, the center part. And now if you scale the image, you're gonna see that not everything gets scaled up. The corners remain intact, and no matter how large you make it, you can just keep making this box larger. So I hope that makes the concept clearer for you guys. If you have any basic questions at this point, just let me know in the chat. So that's was the basic concept. You can rotate it, test it out. And of course, if you reset the guides, you're gonna see that the image goes back to looking ugly. And of course, to use this, you have to activate it here in this button, basically. So you have to enable this here. And once you do enable this option, what's going to happen is that you're going to see that um, the sprite will be automatically scaled using 9 slice wherever you use it. So if you've placed it in the room, if you're using it with an object in a sequence, or just have any custom draw calls, draw sprite or draw sprite ext, it's gonna automatically use 9 slice. So beyond this menu, you don't have to do anything else to get 9 slice working. Thank you, Inside Games. I'm glad you enjoyed my courses. And Mike, this is in the beta, so I should have mentioned in the title. I'm gonna edit that in right now. But this is in the beta. This isn't in the stable right now. And you can download the beta from your Yo-Yo Games account page, and you should be able to access it. And it only came out a few weeks ago, so it is new and most people don't know about it. Previously, we used to use scripts, and I think Inside Games might know here, because in my action adventure course, I actually had, I think, 10 or 15 minutes of content explaining how to make a 9 slice script yourself. And of course, all that's now a little deprecated because it now has a built in feature for this. So, yeah, if you enable this, it's gonna work everywhere. And I'm gonna explain soon what these options are. Let me find any. If I have a suitable image to show these concepts. So, yeah, this should be good enough. We have a cake platform here. Let's enable 9 slice. And scale it up on the right here. No, it's still in the beta. It's not in the stable yet. So in the scaling panel here, you can see that the corners stay intact and the rest of the image is scaled up. So the corners are very detailed here, as you can see here, but the center part and the edge, they still have very large pixels. Doesn't look good. So for this, you can actually do something. Let me see if I can get out of this. So first of all, you can select a slice here, and here you can see that we have selected the center slice, and the edge ones you can't select the corner ones because they don't have any configurable options here. Yeah, if it was a 9 slice script, it's basically the same thing. All it does is that it keeps the corners intact and stretches the edges. I also have an asset for this on the marketplace, and I guess that's also obsolete now, so I'll probably take that down. So about the options, let's say I select the left edge. So it is selected, as you can see here. It says left. And in the tile mode, you're gonna see that it says stretch, which means that it's gonna stretch it to fit your new scale. And if I set it to repeat, if you can see here, because this image is low contrast, but if you can see here, that edge is being repeated. And this can be used to preserve your details, because if you stretch it out and there are details in that part, then the pixels there are gonna get larger. If there are multiple images in the sprites, multiple sub images, there's still gonna be one 9 slice setting for the whole sprite. It's not different for each frame, so it's gonna be the same for every frame. That makes sense. You just made your own line size script. Yeah, but yeah, good that they have it in the IDE now because you can see a live preview of it here and adjust it. That's something you can't do with scripts. This is a great feature. I miss native tools than GMS. Yeah, it definitely needs more built-in features, and this is a good step towards that. So yeah, this is being repeated. Let's go ahead and do that for every edge we have here. Let's add this to repeat, and this one, and this one, and the center one. So you can see this doesn't look very good because this image isn't made to be repeated like this, but this explains the concept. As and as I scale the image up and down, you can see that the detail stays there. Nothing really is getting scaled up, it's just being moved now because the corners and the edges, they're all being moved and cropped basically, but it's not being scaled up anymore. Of course, you also have some other options. So I'm going to select the center one and let's see mirror. And this does look better because this is going to mirror each tile, each second tile basically. So the first tile is going to be with a basic original scale, and then the next tile is going to be scaled the opposite way. So it's going to be mirrored. Let's just do that for every edge. And that actually does look better for this sprite. I actually like this. And then we also have blank repeat. So it just basically never repeats, just draws one tile. And I don't know how this is going to be useful, but maybe in some very specific some circumstances. And then you have hide basically. It just doesn't appear. And that's all the tile modes we have here. Let's just set this to mirror because that's looking good. And let's see how this basically results, how this affects our objects and sequences and images that we have placed in the game. Because if you already have a game, you're not starting from scratch. You have sprites that are assigned to objects, they are placed in sequences and in rooms. If you enable 9 slice on them, you don't have to go and change anything if they're just scaled appropriately. 9 slice is gonna work automatically. Let's make an object, cake, and let's apply the image. And if you open the room editor, let me set a nice color. Place the object here, and you're gonna see 9 slice here automatically. Didn't have to do anything else. And it basically worked. The same should apply to asset layers, I think, that basically take the sprite only. And yeah, it does work. So it's supposed to just work everywhere, and you don't really have to change anything. Hi, Misty Moore or Martin. So yeah, the object is gonna work, and as you may have guessed, it's also gonna work in sequences. And there we go, it works in sequences as well. And now you might be wondering what happens to the draw calls. So if you're using draw sprite ext, does it work there? And let's test it out. So I've just put a draw event here. So of course the object will not be drawn itself because the draw event is empty, but it shouldn't have been drawn itself. Let's just put this here, draw sprites ext at mouse x, mouse y. course, I put the X and Y first. The image, sub image, and for the scale, let's set 10 and 10. Rotation 0, color -1, which is white. Alpha should be 1. So this should work now. Let's see. And I hope you can see the game. But as you can see, it does work. Let's try it with a variable size so it changes with our mouse, I guess. Let's draw this at 20 by 20. And for the scale, let's see mouse X divided by sprite width, let's say, and mouse Y divided by sprite height. And in the room, I'm just gonna set the initial scale to 1 and 1. Why, Mr. Moy? Are you not making games anymore? And why is that? Because I remember you used to make pretty good games. Let's see what happens here. And you can see it's scaling at real time using 9 slice with my mouse. So it's gonna work everywhere, no matter what you wanna do with it, whether you wanna make a button or a health bar. So you could imagine it being a health bar like this, and it would scale pretty well. So let's just go ahead and make a simple button with this. Let me set up the sprites that we need for this. I'm gonna find the images. These are actually from the Kenny pack on Itch. These are just great images. And they're especially good to be used if you're just making a prototype and you don't have any art ready. And let's move the second frame down a little so we get a better effect. And the second one will basically be used when the button is being held down. Let's see how the 9 slice is set up for this. Higher thus, I'm feeling good. What about you? So the 9 slice should be working well enough. Just make sure that you have this option enabled, because a lot of times I just forget enabling this and I just start my game and I'm like, why isn't my 9 slice working? And I just have this disabled. So let's make a button object. Nice to see you guys as well. So O button, and let's set up a name for this. So title, make it a string. I hope the scaling of the ID isn't an issue for you guys. I hope you can see it, especially on the 100% scale. I tried to scale it up, but it didn't work for some reason. The DPI features. Let's say button. Yeah. Hi, Carlos. It's 7:35 right now. Let's draw this button quickly. Place it in the room. And of course, you can scale it up. Make an interface. Nice interface. Just delete this and you can keep placing buttons and you can see how nice this looks. This is really a great feature to have. Let's draw the title. draw events, draw self, obviously, and then let's set the alignment. Wait, let me see what the origin is for the sprites. It's top left. So yeah, I'll keep using this. I'll set the edge alignment to FA center. It's gonna draw in the center. Vertical alignment to middle, same thing as center, just vertically. Let's copy this and at the end reset these values to left and top. So basically whenever you're setting any draw properties, just make sure to reset them to their default values after you're done drawing whatever that it is you are drawing. Hi Carlos, thank you. Let's draw the text plus sprite width divided by 2. So we are in the center of the button. And for the y plus sprite height divided by 2. And I hope the code can be easily read on the stream. And if you want me to make it bigger, let me know. String will be title, so make sure the variable is called title. Yeah, it is. Hi Gomes or Joms, I don't know. Will the live be saved on YouTube? Yeah, probably it will be. So this should draw the text, but you never know. With programming, things can always go wrong. And you can see our buttons are going crazy. If you can see the game, let me know. Will you ever do sprite stacking tutorials? I think that's something I tried years ago, and it's fun, but I wasn't really a fan of it. And I don't think it's interesting enough to make a tutorial on, because if you make a game with sprite tracking, it's become a little more common now and doesn't look as unique as it used to maybe 7 or 8 years ago. So yeah, probably not. But you can see the buttons are going crazy because we haven't set the image speed to 0. I think this should do it. And yeah, so the buttons are stable now. Let's set the color to black because we can't really see it. We can't really see the text, I mean. And again, with every draw property, just reset it to default after you're done drawing whatever you're drawing. So I'm setting the color to black here. But after this, I'm gonna reset it to white. And I'm also gonna add a font. Why not? Let's use where's Weber's? I can't find it. Let's see. Barn shaped should be good enough. And let's set the font here. Cause the buttons are easier to read now. Let's add the create event. And then the begin step event. I usually do my UI stuff in begin step. Sort of feels better to take input and sort of have it affect your buttons in the begin step event. And in the step event, you can have some sort of other main logic that you want. But for input stuff, I like using begin step. Time for some water because we are all hydrohomies here. So right now our image index is set to 0. It's drawing the first frame, and let's get hover inputs. Let's see if the mouse is hovering over this button. So because this is scaled in the room editor, the mask should also scale up, and this way we should be able to use position meeting, I think, to check if the mouse is meeting with this specific instance, if the mouse is meeting with the current instance, basically mouse X, mouse Y, and the ID. So if we are hovering on it, let's set the image alpha to 0.5, else let's set it to 1. Let's just see if this works. And it does. I'm just gonna use lerp here. This should give us a smooth transition. So for lerp, basically in the first parameter, you need to enter the variable that you are changing. So usually when you're using this to animate values, the variable that you have here will be the same as the variable on the left hand side here. And then in the second parameter, you need to have the target value where you want the value to go, the variable to go. And I'm going to set that to 0.8. And then you have the amount parameter. This is basically how fast this variable is going to go there. And this can be a value between 0 and 1. So I'll set this to 0.1. And what this means is that every step or every frame, it's gonna move 10% of the distance between the two values. So it's always gonna move 10% of the distance. This means that the speed at which the value changes will be dependent on the distance between the two values. So it will always appear smooth, basically. Let's copy this here. And here the target value will be 1 because we want it to go back to the default alpha. And let's set this to 0.6 so we can see the distinction easily. Of course, the effect is much smoother now. And let's see how we can click on this. Let's get the click inputs. Let's say L click. And be left. So the left mouse button. And in the hover block, because we only want the user to be able to click on it if they are hovering on this button. Again, if you guys have any questions about anything, feel free to interrupt me. Just post it in the chat and I'll make sure to answer. So another block here will be if I'll click. And if we are clicking for now, let's just do something simple. Let's set the image index to 1. And let's set it to 0 here. So if we are clicking on it, it's gonna change to 1. And we have a basic click effect here. When I click on it, it basically changes to the next frame, but the 9 slice effect stays intact. Will you make a new Udemy course in the near future? I am planning on working on one. Things are a little slow due to me being hired at Yo-Yo Games, but I will be working on an RPG course, I think. And so our buttons do work now, and the 9 slice effect remains intact because someone asked earlier whether each frame was gonna have a different 9 slice property, and the answer was basically that the sprite has its own 9 slice properties. It's not different for each frame, and so even if the frames are changed here, the 9 slice effect still remains intact. And you can see that the button is moving down, but the text isn't. That looks somewhat odd. So let's go in the draw event, and here let's just add a slight offset to the y coordinates. And this is really a simple hack for now. But let's say image index into 6, let's say for now. And now the text also moves down. It's a little too much. Maybe 5 or 4 would work better. But the concept is that if the image index is 0, this is gonna be 0. So it's not gonna move. If this is 1, then it's basically gonna move by 5 pixels. So we have a basic button working with 9 slices, so you can see how this is very useful. Of course, you can make an interface in the room editor, but what I suggest is to make the interface in a sequence. So let's see the size here 1366, 768, and we have the same here in the sequence. And you can make your interface here, enable the grid, and start placing your objects. So this way what happens is that if you have a sequence, this you can just spawn it anywhere. So if you have a pause menu, basically you're in the game room and you press the escape key and the pause menu shows up, and you basically place the sequence there, and your user interface basically spawns, and then you can remove it. If you just want to place it in the room, that's fine for a main menu or an options menu, that is a separate screen. But if you want to show the interface in the game, or you want it to be reused, then you should use a sequence. So let's place a few buttons here. Let's add the frame count to 1 because we don't want this to animate. Now, one disadvantage of using sequences for now is that, let's say in the room editor, you can go into an object and set its variable. So you can change the text on this button. And when you run the game, of course, you're gonna see its effect. So for each instance, you can have different properties. But you can't do this in the sequence. So in the sequence, when you place an object, it does create an instance, but you can't really customize it right now. So I hope this does get added in the future, but for now, this is a disadvantage. But if you have separate objects for each button, then the sequences would be a good way to make use of them. So let's remove these buttons in the room and create an asset layer. That's where your sequences are placed. Call the sequence. And let's place the sequence here. So of course, if you didn't know, you can place sequences in the room editor, and you can also create them at runtime using a simple function. And if you run the game, you should see the buttons in the room. And of course, they function like normal, but they were created from a sequence. Now you can also create sequences at runtime. I'm not gonna go into that in this stream, but basically I have videos on sequences that you can watch, but you need to use the layer sequence create function to create a sequence in a layer. You're gonna store its ID, and then you're gonna use layer sequence destroy to remove it. Don't confuse this with sequence creates and sequence destroy, because these are for actually creating and destroying new sequence assets at runtime. But these are for spawning a sequence in a room. So now let's just look at a different use of 9 slices. Let's create a health bar, because usually when you think of 9 slice, as we just did, mostly you're gonna think of user interfaces, and HUD isn't mainly a part of it, but you can also do some good HUD with it, especially health bars. So let's see if I can find an image for a health bar, and we're gonna create a health bar using the 9 slice feature. Let's use this. Doesn't really look like a health bar, but should be good enough for this example. Hello, Dilly boy. So I just name this as health bar. And of course, we need to enable 9 slice on this. So let's move the guides. And again, we can test what happens here. And it is being scaled. And in this example, we don't really need to use the repeat tile mode, because there's no detail in the edges and the center to repeat here. So the stretch one is gonna do, and it's also gonna be faster. And again, don't forget to enable the activate 9 slice option. Yeah, it is, but right now it's in the beta. So it's not in the stable version for now, but you can download the beta from your Yo-Yo Games account page, and you should get it from there. And again, make sure this is enabled. And let's create a basic health bar. Instead of making a health bar object, let's just make a HUD manager. Usually that's what I do. And that basically manages drawing all the HUD, including health bars. It doesn't need a sprite. Let's place it in the room in the instances layer. I'm gonna need the create events, the step events, and the draw events, and let's maximize this. Let's set up some variables for the health bar. So let's say health bar X, for the health bar Y, also for the health bar width. Let's say I'm gonna make this a relative scale value for the image. Let's say 8 for the width. This would be better as scale X, I think. I don't think sequences cause any issues in the stable version. I myself haven't used it in a commercial project yet, but I think it should be good to use. And also let me know what you're thinking to use it for, because it also depends on the use. Because if you're kind of misusing it and not really using it the way it's intended, the game can get slower. So you do need to take care how you use sequences. And did they add room view in the sequences yet? I don't think so. I don't think they did, but that would be really good. For cutscenes, yeah, for sure. They are really made for cutscenes because some people get the wrong idea that it's sort of supposed to be a skeleton animation program, but it isn't. It isn't a replacement for spine, but for cutscenes, it's perfect. So on the y-axis, I'm gonna set the scale to 1. It's a simple health bar, doesn't need to be too high or too long vertically. And let's also set a health value. So I'll set the HP to 100. And in the step events, we need a way to basically change the HP based on the mouse's location. I'm actually gonna create a max HP value, set this to 100 and set the HP to the max HP. And in the step event, we're gonna set the HP. First, we're gonna take the relative value of the mouse within the room. So let's divide the mouse X by the room width, and let's multiply this by the max HP. So this is basically gonna give us a value between 0 and 1, and it's gonna multiply that with the max HP, which is 100. So this is gonna become a value between 0 and 100. So let's see if this works. Let's do a show debug message, which basically prints a message into the output log, which you can find right here. And let's just print the HP. And I'm sure you can't read the small numbers right here, but it is working. When I put my mouse right here, it goes up, almost goes up to 100, 99.9. And as I move it to the left, it moves closer to 0. So let's remove this line and try to draw our health bar, but not before drinking some water. Drinking water is very important. It's almost as important as this new feature, which is also very important. So in the draw event, let's use draw sprite ext to draw as health bar. Lagadex asking what is 9 slice. Well, I have explained it already in the stream, but you can download the beta and go into the manual, and there should be some documentation there. And of course, you can scroll back in the stream, watch it from the beginning. You can also watch it later because this stream will be saved on my channel, so you will be able to watch it later. And let's draw this health bar. Sub image 0. X will be health bar X, Y is health bar Y. And this is where we need to basically do something, because here we have the X scale, and let's work on that later. For now, I'll set the Y scale to 1 because we don't want to scale it on the Y axis. I know I made a scale variable here, but let's just do this for now. But I could just also use it, doesn't make a difference. Rotation 0, colors -1, alpha is 1. And for the um, X scale, let's first of all use health bar scale X, which is 8, and let's just see what happens. So you see the health bar, but for some reason it's not scaling with 9 slice. And because, again, as I said earlier on the stream, I always forget enabling this option. Should work now. I'm not sure what you guys are saying. I can't read that language, Chinese or Japanese. I'm not sure. But you can see the health bar now, and it doesn't scale because we haven't told it to do that yet. But this is the max size. You're gonna see that maybe it would be better to use 0.5 as the Y scale. Ah, I've been using GameMaker for, I'd say, 8 years, 8 or 9 years, but I only got serious with it around 6 or 5 years ago. Before that, I was just a casual kid playing around with it. I barely even knew how to code or do anything with even with drag and drop. Uh, so yeah, as Mr. Moy says, I was on the Yo-Yo sandbox, but again, I didn't really know how to code. So here we have our health bar. It's not scaling right now because we haven't told it to do that yet. This is how large it's gonna be at max. So for the scale x, let's multiply this with a simple expression. Let's say HP divided by max HP. So this is gonna give us a relative value between normalized value between 0 and 1 for the HP out of the max HP, and that's gonna be multiplied with the scale that you set in the create event. Thank you, Timothy. Now you can see the health bar working. All I'm doing here is basically setting the HP value um, between 0 and 100 as per the max HP, and that HP value is basically being used in this statement here. And here we have our health bar. Of course, you could make a nicer looking health bar that makes use of the 9 slice feature much better than this. This is really simple, but you get the point. The health bar's working, it's using 9 slides, and that's why this feature is great. It's gonna be very useful for a lot of things: user interface, HUD, health bar, and perhaps a lot of things that I can't think of right now. So just like sequences, this is another feature that's gonna open up a lot of possibilities in GameMaker. It's gonna allow you to do more. And again, the sky is the limit. You can do whatever you want with it, even in ways that don't seem obvious. And I think the stream's done here. That's all I wanted to show. I'll be going off in half a minute. So if anyone has any questions, just put it in the chat and I'll try to answer them. Can you do a 2D platformer tutorial? I have a 2D platformer course on Udemy, so maybe you can check that out. Um, Let me see. Yeah, here you go. JM Caslo. This is my platformer course. Hey, are you working on a game you will release? I was actually in a team for the past 1.5 years. We, I mean, the team is still active, but I had to leave a month ago because of being hired at Yo-Yo Games. And so right now I'm not working on any games. I was a month ago, but again I had to leave. So yeah, that's where I am. And if you guys don't have any other questions, I guess I'll end the stream. And again, it will be up on my channel. So if you haven't seen it from the beginning, you can watch it again. And okay, you're welcome. This was a fun stream. So yeah, thank you guys. See you guys later. And I hope I stream in the future. And I hope you come here again. Goodbye.